That's all it would take to shatter everything you thought you knew about human history. Because beneath the calm, dark surface of the Black Sea, hidden for 12,000 years, there are ruins that should not exist, structures carved with symbols older than the world's oldest writing, and whispers of a civilization advanced enough to predict the flood that would erase them. This is the story of what happened before the sea swallowed their world. Long before there was a Black Sea, there was a valley, a vast sunlit basin surrounded by mist-covered cliffs, forests of copper-colored trees, and a river that carved through fertile plains like a serpent of silver. In that valley stood the city of Aramun, the heart of a forgotten civilization. Its towers were carved from pale stone that shimmered under the morning sun, its streets paved with obsidian tiles, polished so perfectly that people said you could see your past and future in your reflection. For thousands of years, Aramun thrived at the bottom of the basin, isolated from the world above, protected by a natural land barrier where the Bosporus now is. Generations rose and fell in peace, guided by scholars known as the Tidekeepers, astronomer-priests who studied the movements of the stars and the ancient records carved into obsidian monoliths. Their greatest concern was always the same: water. They believed the world beyond the ridge held a restless sea, a sea that had once tried to break through. Legends said that one day the barrier would crumble and the sea would come roaring down like a sky fallen sideways. Most thought it was myth, until the signs appeared. The youngest tidekeeper, a bright-eyed woman named Lyria, was the first to notice it. She saw strange patterns in the sky, a shift in the winds, the disappearance of certain birds. She took her findings to the High Council. "The outer sea is rising," she warned. "The temperature above the ridge has changed. Ice in the far world is melting faster than ever. The barrier cannot hold forever." The council dismissed her. Aramun had lived for millennia without disaster. Why fear the sky now? But Lyria wasn't the only one who sensed something wrong. Deep beneath Aramun, in the caverns where glowing mushrooms formed entire ceilings of blue light, old stone structures began to tremble, not from earthquakes, but from pressure from the other side. At the same time, the people of Aramun witnessed strange tides in the valley's freshwater lake. It rose one day, dropped the next, behaving like a living creature gasping for breath. Lyria gathered her closest companions: Maros, a stone engineer; Evan, an archivist who could decipher forgotten symbols; and Kale, a young fisherman whose family had lived by the lake for generations. Together they began searching ancient texts forbidden to the public. These texts spoke of a time long before Aramun, when the outer sea had tried to break into the basin, but was repelled by the natural ridge. It said the next time it came, it would not stop. For years, Lyria's group tracked rising humidity, changing currents, and tremors along the ridge. Meanwhile, the people kept living their lives, harvesting wheat, sculpting art, building homes, never knowing how close they were to the edge of extinction. Then came the day everything changed. It was late afternoon, the sun melting into gold over the basin, when a sound rolled across the valley. At first, it was a distant murmur, like thunder coming from behind the mountains. Slowly it grew louder, deeper, until it became a roar, a monstrous, unending roar that shook every bone in every living creature. The ground trembled, birds fled in chaotic swarms. The lake rose 2 full feet in a single hour. Lyria climbed the highest watchtower in the city with Kale at her side. From there they could see everything. The ridge, once solid, immovable, eternal, was cracking. A line of white foam began to appear, thin at first like frost. Then it bulged. Then it erupted. A wall of water taller than the highest tower exploded through the breach with the fury of a broken sky. "It's happening," Lyria whispered. "The sea has found us." The flood began with unstoppable rage. It tore down the ridge like a titan's hammer smashing through clay. The water, salt water from the outer world, poured into the valley with a force no human had ever witnessed. Entire forests vanished within seconds. Giant boulders rolled like pebbles. Villages on the outskirts disappeared in white torrents. The lake expanded, swallowing everything in its path. In Aramun, bells rang in panic as people ran through the streets. Mothers grabbed children. Elders prayed to old gods. The council finally realized Lyria had been right, but too late to prepare a plan. Only one hope remained: the sky caverns. Deep beneath the city lay a network of chambers built by the first Aramun settlers. These were designed as shelters against disasters, but no one had ever imagined a flood of this scale. Lyria led the people toward the caverns, while the roar of the incoming ocean grew louder every second. Meros and Kale stayed behind to reinforce the cavern's gates, while Evan and the archivists carried entire libraries of tablets, records of language, science, maps, and astronomy, hoping to preserve their world's knowledge. But as they worked, a thought gnawed at Lyria. Even if they survived the initial flood, the basin would fill completely. The water would keep rising for months or years. They needed a long-term plan. In the deepest chamber of the caverns, the Tidekeepers had built something extraordinary. A circular device, half mechanical and half stone, powered by crystal lenses that captured geothermal heat. It was a vault designed to preserve memory, not just data. It recorded images, voices, and the thoughts of those who touched its surface. If Aramun fell, this vault would tell the world who they were. Lyria pressed her palm to the device and spoke. "This is Lyria of Aramun, Tidekeeper of the Fifth Circle. If you find this, know that we lived, we dreamed, we loved, and we fought the flood with every breath." Above them, disaster thundered. The entire city shook as the outer sea finally reached Aramun. A tidal wave taller than any mountain crashed into the walls, shattering towers, crushing markets, ripping trees from the earth. Kale, standing atop the last watchtower, saw it happen. He watched his home vanish under white foam and swirling debris. He watched the lake become a rising sea. He ran for the caverns, but he wasn't fast enough. A second wave surged forward. It hit him like a hammer of ice, sweeping him off his feet. The world became water, spinning, crushing, freezing. He tried to swim, but didn't know which way was up. Just when he thought he would drown, a hand grabbed him. Meros had dived into the flood, fighting the current to reach him. Together they struggled, pushing through the collapsing entrance of the caverns just as the water swallowed the last dry stones of Aramun. Inside the caverns, chaos erupted. Families huddled together as water seeped through cracks. Children screamed. The floor vibrated as the entire basin received the full force of the outer sea. Days passed, then weeks. The water rose higher and higher until the caverns were the last dry place in the entire basin. The people survived on stored food, creating fireless shelters lit by glowing fungi. Lyria, even through exhaustion, kept daily records in the vault. She described the destruction, the endless rising of the water, the deaths of loved ones, the fading hope. Then came the final day. Water burst through the final gate. The caverns filled. People scrambled onto floating debris, but there was no escape. Yet something remarkable happened. The vault, sensing catastrophic failure, sealed itself and activated an emergency mode. It rose through a vertical shaft carved thousands of years earlier and drifted upward on a cushion of heated air. As the caverns drowned, the vault floated to the surface of the newly forming sea. It stayed afloat for days, recording everything. Eventually, salt water seeped into its outer shell, causing its systems to shut down. The vault sank slowly, spiraling into the depths, carrying the final story of a forgotten civilization to the bottom of the new Black Sea. Thousands of years passed. The world changed. Empires rose and fell. And then, in our time, explorers detected something strange beneath the Black Sea. Structures arranged too perfectly to be natural. A dome, a circular device, and inscriptions that matched no known language. The sea had hidden Aramun well, but not forever. And if we ever manage to decode the vault, we might discover that our history is far older, far stranger, and far more extraordinary than we ever imagined. And maybe, just maybe, Aramun left a warning for us, a warning about water, about cycles, about the rise and fall of worlds. If you want more stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with me for more mysteries.